Gilboa mountain. We went on that water route, if you remember. We had a great time. And we saw the tall mountain above us. That was the Gilboa mountain. That means the Plishtim, who are living in southwestern Eretz Yisrael, the area of Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, southwest, have penetrated inland so much that they're untouched, and the war is happening in northeastern Israel. That means a diagonal, the opposite of southwest. Isn't that the northeast? Yeah. So here, just next to the Beit Shan Valley, on top of this tall mountain called the Gilboa Mountain, overlooking the Jezreel Valley, the Beit Shan Valley, overlooking this nest of terrace today where the Janin is, Ganim, the name of Janin, which is Latin, is in Hebrew Ganim. We lived in Ganim during temple period number 1, maybe also temple period number 2, to show that the Plishtim are controlling Israel. And here, what happened after the war when Shaul and Yonatan and other sons were killed? What did the Plishtim do with them? Were they given an honorary burial? No. A military burial with shooting into the air? No.
They hung him on
They hung them inside the wall of Beit Shan.
With their idol.
Isn't that tremendous disrespect? And what has happened in the last few decades? Garnished. Nothing. Shaul and Yonatan and other sons are still where? In the walls of Beit Shan.
No, they were taken.
They were taken by the people of
Gilad.
Right, Gilad. So, very good. Now what we're learning here, we don't know when it's happening. Now we're learning what David is about to do. Now David does a wonderful act, and he wants to bring Shaul and Yonatan to their natural burial place. Where would be their natural burial place of Shaul and Yonatan? The Benjamin area. Very good. They're members of the tribe of Benjamin. So it would be natural to bring them to their father, ancestral, wherever their families are buried. Look what David does now. Pasuk Yud Bet, verse 12. Vayelech David, he goes on a journey. Vayikach et atzmot Shaul, vet atzmot Yonatan beno, me'et, like you said, David, ba'alei yavesh Gilad. Okay? I mistakenly said that, well, the truth is, they were hung inside the wall, and then on a secret mission done by Jews from the Giladi Mountains, which is opposite Beit Shan. It could be the tribe of Gad, it could be the tribe of Menachem. It's not exactly clear to me. They went on a reconnaissance mission at night. After the war, we lost the war to the Plishtim, and they found the body of Shaul and Yonatan and others in the walls of Beit Shan, and they did an act of kindness. We call this in halacha, chesed shel emet. Remember that term. Why is burial called chesed shel emet?
Never repay you.
Very good. Because you're not going to be repaid. So they did a very valiant act against maybe the Plishtim armies in the area. They stole their bodies and brought them to at least temporary burial in the Giladi Mountains. Now, David is searching for them, and he wants to bring them to their place of inheritance for burial. So, Asher Ganvu Otam Mirachov Beit Shan, we're told the story that the Giladi Jews stole them from the streets of Beit Shan. Asher Tlum Shama Plishtim, the Plishtim hung them there, Biomakot Plishtim et Shol Begilboa. And now what is David doing? Let's finish it up, 13. Vayal misham et atzmot Shaul, he brings them up. Vet atzmot Yonatan beno, the bones of Shaul and Yonatan. Vayasvu et atzmot hamukaim. If your Hebrew verbs are good, who are the mukaim? The ones that are hung. The ones that are hung. Meaning the seven what? Sons of Shaul. Psh. So here it is, and now it's finalized. Pasuk Yudalid. Vayikberu et atzmot Shaul v'Yonatan beno. Where? Be'eretz Binyamin, in a place called Bitsela. Bekever Kish Aviv. Where is the name Kish, the father of Shaul, mentioned? Do you remember, gentlemen? If you studied Sefer Shmuel. Shaul, come on, come over here. I have a job to do. Remember when your father asked you to take out the garbage? Oh, come on, Abba. You know, the garbage is like 50 meters away. I can't do it, you know. Kish asks Shaul, look, my donkey has gotten lost. Can you go search for them? No problem, Abba. No sweat. He wants to do the mitzvah of, he travels kilometers, days, looking for the lost chamor of his father Kish. Does he raise a word up? No. Why? Mitzvah's a mitzvah. Today we're a little spoiled. Our father has to take out the garbage. Oh, come on, Abba. Maybe a little later, this and that. That's not Shaul. Kish gives Shaul a major project to do. He does it. Vayasu kol asher tziva melech. And what happens after the burial of these people that are hung? Vaye'ater Elokim la'aretz. God is answering, is receiving the tefillot. Vaye'ater. The same word is used, do you remember, in the book of Bereshit? The same verb for very powerful prayer. Who remembers where the usage of this verb is? Who is praying for the change in nature of he and his wife? Yitzchak and Rivka, very good. There we see that they both prayed in opposite places. Vaye'atar, and they're praying strongly. And then it says Vaye'atar, they're answered from their strong prayers. Who is answering who with what? After the seven are brought to burial, together with Shaul and his sons, what happens? What does it mean that God answers the land? What does it mean?
There's a rain.
Very good. There's rain. We're now understanding that the problem that brought about 3 years of drought was the killing of the Givonim in the city of Nov. And what is resolving the problem? The what is it called? The nekama. The vengeance, the revenge that they wanted, and they got it. And we have to ask, how did David deliver? Why was he allowed? Why is it that it's happening in this generation and not in Shaul's generation? Why is it that these seven are brought to death? Because of the sin of their father? So these are questions that we're about now to begin to solve. We find, when we study this section in the Tanakh, three approaches to explaining this very difficult chapter in Tanakh, one of the most difficult chapters to explain. David handing over 7 Jews over to the Givonim. Who would have heard such a thing? We have the Pashtanim, the simplistic commentators like Rabbeinu Sajagon, the Radak, and the Marikara. We have Chazal in the Midrash and in the Talmud, the second approach. And we have the Malbim. The Malbim, the later commentator 150 years ago, 200 years ago, I don't exactly remember when, that he is like something in the middle between Chazal's approach and the simplistic meters. First, let's go to the simplistic commentators, Radak, Marikara, and Rabbeinu Sajagon. Have you heard of Rabbeinu Sajagon in the Gaonic era? Okay. What happened to the Givonim? So they explain that yes, Shaul killed the Givonim. Okay? Shaul killed the Givonim. Why? Because he had zealousy for the honor of the nation of Israel. He says it's not right. Okay? Shaul killed them from the law that they are Givonites, and you're not allowed to have mercy over them. What did the Torah say in last week's parsha? Quote, Lo techayeh kol neshama. That's a pasuk from last week's parsha, which means
No soul allowed to live.
you're not allowed to leave alive any soul of the Canaanites. Now, the question is, they lied, they fooled Bnei Yisrael, and Yeshua made a treaty with them. But Shaul does not see himself that he has to be obligated to continue this treaty, to continue this pact whatsoever. No. He knows that the impact, the influence of these Givonim on the Jewish people is bad, is evil. They're living in central Israel, in Shiloh. They were living there for hundreds of years. Their spiritual impact on others was not good. They're in a very significant place, serving for the generations from Yoshua, right? Remember, Shiloh, as the Mishkan, lasted 369 years. Generation after generation after generation, who is living there and serving? The Givonim. Shaul says it's not the right thing. It's not the right thing. The time has arrived to eliminate them. This is a Brit of Sheker, the commentators explain. It's a covenant based on lies. Okay? And so much time has passed by. Now, according to the Yerushalmi Talmud, when that terrible episode happened, that Shaul accepted Lashon Hara, that the Kohanim are collaborating with David against Shaul, okay? When that happened, the Yerushalmi says that's when Shaul killed 7 Givonite men in that town. At the time the same episode happened. And the claim of revenge of the Givonim is from Bnei Shaul. Why from them? It was Shaul that killed them, isn't it? So Rabbeinu Sadia Gaon suggests apparently the ones that put the Givonim to death were the 7 sons of Shaul. They are the ones that put to death the 7 Givonim people. Now, that explains why these 7. Yet we do not understand why would it be okay to leave their corpses out in the air for such a long time. Okay, until Sukkot time comes and rainfall comes down. That's what we see, that the anger of God, the wrath of God is past. If those 7 sons were partners in killing the Givonim, we better understand now why David handed them over. Okay? This is the story according to the commentators, the Rishonim that are explaining the Pshat. Okay? That Shaul wanted to kill them as Canaanites. The sons of Shaul were the ones, we're summarizing, the ones that killed the Givonim. And that explains why David is demanded to hand over 7 sons. Although we don't see the entire picture here, David has mercy on Mephibosheth. Ken, now if that doesn't explain this matter as well. If Mephibosheth was one of the killers, then he should be handed over. If he's not, why have mercy? This matter too is not so clear to us. If we go to Chazal understand the situation totally different. It's a totally different picture. We see the gap between what was in fact and what was the reaction, the such harsh reaction of the Givonim. We see the gap, a larger gap than we explained just before. According to Chazal, Shaul did not kill the Givonim whatsoever. It's not stated in the book of Shmuel. So what did Shaul do? Shaul, we do know that who did he kill? The city of Kohanim. Chazal say this caused severe economic devastation. To who? To the Givonim. If there are no Kohanim working where the Mishkan is, then there's no need for wood choppers and there's no need for water barriers. No work, no parnasa. No parnasa. They cannot economically not only not thrive, but they can't maintain themselves. There's no salaries. In other words, today, if you're unemployed, where do you go to? You go to the unemployment office. You sign, you give up your name, and then you get a phone call. Someone's looking for you for this job, for that job. Okay? But then, there's no unemployment offices, are there? Huh? There are no unemployment officers. Okay? Who's gonna? By the way, what's in their ID? They don't have a good name. They're a bunch of liars. They fooled and they deceived who? Yoshua. He was the one that after they lied to them, told them you're going to be doing menial labor, meaning wood chopping and carrying water for the altar. But right now there's no altar. Why is there no altar? No Kohanim. Ein Mizbeach, ein Avodah. If there's no altar, there's no work. And therefore, no one supporting them. Okay? Jews prefer who to support? Fellow Jews, and not these Givonim that lied to Yoshua a few hundred years ago. What is the result? The claim of the Givonim were destroyed from standing in anywhere of the borders of Israel. In other words, it doesn't have to mean that we were killed, but that we're a bunch of poor people. We don't have any income coming in whatsoever. So here it is. The result of Shaul killing the Kohanim is that the Givonim do not have a livelihood. They don't have any economic livelihood. From here stems the tremendous desecration of God's name because of the brit that Bnei Yisrael made with the Givonim. If Shaul, what did he do? Brought about the lack of maintaining a brit, then the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the British BBC, they're all indicating that the Jewish people don't keep their word because of what Shaul did. Shaul made a brit with the Yoshua made a brit with the Givonim. Shaul wiped out the Kohanim, and right now, this brings now another moral problem. According to Chazal, were the Givonim killed? Yes or no? No. They were not killed. They were economically devastated. This causes right now a tremendous gap between the request of vengeance of the Givonim to kill 7 members of the family of Shaul to what really happened in fact. What happened in fact? Were the Givonim killed physically? No. They were not killed. So this explanation of Chazal leaves with us a difficult explanation, because David hands them over and they're going to do whatever they want to do with them. But they were never killed. They were just economically devastated. You follow what I'm saying? This explanation of Chazal. And for this, the point that you made a few moments ago, we see the term Hamelech. Hamelech. This is certainly not a regular law between relations of the Jewish people and the Givonim. Chazal explain, and Rashi brings it here, the Kohen Gadol stood up, or maybe before the ark, and he brought the sons of Shaul before the ark. Whoever was absorbed, and I don't know exactly what it means, but that's the words of Chazal. Whoever was, I don't know if it's like a magnet, they were brought before the ark. And whoever was absorbed, he was handed over. Whoever was not absorbed, in other words, we ask a question. Why is David handing over 7 Jews of Shaul, 7 sons of Shaul, for a case that there was no death done to the Givonim? The answer is, it's God's judgment. It's not David's judgment. It's God's judgment. How do we know? Because Chazal explain that David brought them before the Holy Ark, the Aron Hashem, and whoever was absorbed by the Ark was taken. It's not David handing them over, but rather who? Hashem handing them over, exactly. It's Adin Elokim. It's judgment of God and not judgment of David. So, yes?
That's why then they say Hamelech.
That's why he's. It could be referring to also maybe Hamelech of God,
Yes.
like it says in Megillat Esther, right? When the Midrash uses the term Hamelech in Megillat Esther and just leaves it anonymous, that could be one of the meanings for the word Hamelech. So what's going on regarding Vayachmol, that David is having mercy for Mephibosheth? What is he praying? He's praying that Mephibosheth not be absorbed by the Holy Ark. Gentlemen, according to Chazal, this explanation, for many months, you counted yourself 6 or 7 months, people walking by Capitol Hill, the capital where the Armon Melucha used to be of Shaul, they walk by and they see 7 sons of Shaul hung there, and everyone is asking what question?
Why it's been hanging there for a while?
What's going on here, man? Why are they hung there? And what are they being told? Because of the wrong attitude of Bnei Yisrael, led by Shaul, to the Givonim. Now I want to tell you something that you may have not known before, and for me it took years to understand. Masechet Kiddushin, chapter 4, Mishnah 1. We're told about Asara Yuchasin Alumi Bavel. 10 different lineages of Jews made Aliyah from Bavel. Kohanim, Leviyim, Yisraelim, Geirim, Mamzerim, Shtuki, Asufi, and then there's a term there called Netinim. What do you think it comes from? Which word? Latet, Vayitain. The Netinim in the Mishnah there, David made a restriction, a decree, that the Jews called, I repeat, the Jews called the Netinim are not allowed to enter into the congregation of God in marriage. They cannot marry Kohen, Levi, or Yisrael. They can only marry like themselves, Geirim, Mamzerim, and so on and so forth. The less pure-bred Jews. The Netinim are the Givonim. They did somewhere during the time of history between Yoshua and Shaul, they did Geyur. And they're called in Chazal Geirim Gerurim. Gerurim, they're meaning Garua with an ayin, even though it's not spelled with an ayin. My dear friends, when it says, parenthetically, we asked in the former shiur, why does it say when David approached to speak to the Givonim, then we're told this parenthetic information, right? Remember? We're told this parenthetic information about Shaul, that they're not from Bnei Yisrael. Go back to Pasuk, please. Pasuk Bet. Vagivonim lo mi Bnei Yisrael. Heima. Oh, gee whiz, I didn't know that? Of course I knew they're not from Bnei Yisrael. What does it mean? Even though they did Geyur, their behavior, their actions are not the actions of Bnei Yisrael. They're not like from the seed of Avram Avinu. Rashi brings the name of the Gemara. And they're not worthy of cleaving on to Israel. For that, because they're so cruel. According to Chazal, they were not killed, they were economically devastated, and they asked to hand over 7 people and have them killed. And David did it. Because David understands that's going to be the resolution for the economic disaster of the Jewish people for 3 years. But we're told, parenthetically by the prophet, okay, and Shmuel's no longer alive, God or Natan and Navi is writing this, that they're not from Bnei Israel, meaning they don't have the attributes of Bnei Israel. What are the attributes of Bnei Israel? Rachmanim, very good, next. Baishanim, V'gomlei chasadim. Those are the 3 attributes the Talmud tells us, that we are full of mercy, we have shyness, and we bestow kindness. These people are cruel. They're asking to hand over to kill 7 people. They're cruel people. For this, it's David's decree, shelo yavo bekahal. Okay? Again, the Mishnah, Chapter 4, Mishnah 1, Asara Yuchasim Alumi Bavel, and there's a prohibition for the Nitinim that they're not allowed to marry into Kohen Levi and Yisrael. That's the Kahal Hashem, as we see later on. So here we have an understanding that we're being messed up. But why? Why? Because there was a sin called the desecration of God's name. When we give a word, we have to keep our word. We have to deal with them, treat them, care for them, even though they don't deserve it. We made a Brit. The name of God, the name of Israel is now up front. Everyone can see, the Jews don't keep their words. The Goyim are going to now publicize all over on every internet station, on Twitter, on this and that the Jews don't keep their words. Okay? So the subject here in this chapter, according to Chazal, is the transgression called Chilul Hashem. When you're dealing with Chilul Hashem, we don't keep regular laws. We will not keep the laws of penalizing sons for the sin of their fathers. We will, because of the sin of Chilul Hashem, we will not keep the laws of not lodging the carcass overnight and leaving him hung up. In other words, when we're dealing with Chilul Hashem, this is a national violation. It is so great that all the laws of the mitzvot are uprooted. They're uprooted. Like the prohibition, lo yumtu avot al banim, or lo talin nivlato ala eitz. All these laws are uprooted. Yes, sir.
Is the same case with Pinchas?
No, there was a divine command what to do. It was a divine command.
So you're saying the whole people are guilty. So it's not, we're not hating
That's
the
right.
sons for fathers because the sons are guilty.
That's right. That's right. This should have been there should have been a demonstration, a rally against the killing, against the maltreatment of these liars. When we give a word in a shavua, in an oath of God, we have to still treat them. And for this, the gzeira, the decree of David HaMelech that appears in the Mishnah in Kiddushin, we cannot marry them. Why? Because these people are cruel. The Givonim are cruel people. Nachon, Shaul did not relate to them well, and the generations after. But, and to ask the killing of 7 sons is something terrible. That's the approach of Chazal explaining this area. Yes? No. Okay. Now, to end the shiur today, we go to the last approach, and that we said is the Malbim's approach. The Malbim's approach to this matter, which could be like a medium approach between Rav Saadia Gaon Radak, Marikara, and Chazal. The story that happened in Nov. All the Kohanim were killed because Shaul thought they were collaborating with David. According to the Malbim, this includes the killing of the Givonim. Includes the killing of the Givonim. Shaul thought there's not just Kohanim collaborating with David. There are people that are serving the Kohanim. Who are they? The Givonim. they too are mored b'malchut. Why did Shaul kill the Kohanim? Because he thought they're collaborating with David, and David is rebelling against Shaul. So he had them killed because they're all part of this. They're rebels against the kingdom. So too are the Givonim, rebels against the kingdom. That's why they're mored b'malchut, and they're part of the group of the Kohanim. Therefore, Shaul did not suspect that he must keep the Shavuah that Yoshua made, the oath that Yoshua made. He doesn't have to keep it. Why? Because they're rebelling against my kingdom. They're rebelling against my kingdom. However, two severe mistakes the Malbim explains that Shaul made. Number one, the mistake against the Kohanim. It's not true. They were not rebelling against Shaul. And number two, the Givonim. The Givonim also. They're not rebelling against David. They don't even know that David is considered a rebel against Shaul. Now, from the days of Shaul, you all know the Givonim are being pursued. They're maltreated in Israel. They're maltreated in Israel. Okay? And therefore, the Givonim want to get back at Bnei Shul because they're maltreated, and that they want to go back to their original status. Now, the Chidush that the Malbim says, to remember, we asked the question, how can David hand them over? Remember that question? So, this third approach is, do you know what abilities the king have above and beyond what halacha states?
Override.
Right. The king has the ability from the Torah. He has the right and power to make laws that are not Torah laws. He can, if he sees a breach in society, if he sees a spiritual degradation in society, the king is allowed to punish or do things not according to law. That's the power who gave him? Hashem gave him, exactly. So therefore, that will explain why the term melech is being used time and time again. He's using what rights? The rights of a king. Not the rights of Rambam or Shulchan Aruch. He's using the rights of a king. He sees a need as a king. There's a national need. And by the way, who's sending a sign that this is true? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has taken away rain for 3 years from the Jewish people. That's devastating. And therefore it says, Vayomer HaMelech, HaMelech, HaMelech. He's using royal laws, Mishpat HaMelech, in order to do things that you would not ordinarily do. What David wants to do is cause some sort of rehabilitation. He wants to be better with the Givonim. He wants to be better with the burial of Shul and Yonatan. Am Yisrael right now is sitting okay as if everything is okay, but it's not everything is okay. Okay? How will it be that we will bring the goodness to God? David understands it's not enough just to hand over these 7 according to the laws of king. I must correct what mistake was made regarding Shaul and Yonatan. They didn't have a proper burial. They didn't have a proper eulogy. David thought it was enough to thank Anshe Yavesh Gilad then. When he took power, he gave them thanks for in his beginning of his kingdom. He sent a mishlachet, a commission to give thanks to them. But you know what? The honor of the former king Shaul was not corrected. He didn't have really a proper national burial. He didn't have a national eulogy. And therefore, what ticks on David's mind to do such a thing? When he sees the undivided devotion of what woman? Ritzpah Bataya. In the honor of those that were hung, day in and day out, 1 month, 2 months, for 6 months, 7 months. That arouses a worry and a concern of David. I didn't do this proper work for Shaul. So David goes out of his way. He travels all the way to Yavesh Gilad, to the Giladi mountains, and he brings back the bones of Shaul and Yonatan. And he gives them a proper burial with a proper national eulogy. And this is now atoning for the nation of Israel. Remember, because of Shaul, famine came to the land. But this is the greatness of David. He doesn't say, it's not me, it's Shaul. Doesn't make a difference. David is a saint. Even though it's because of Shaul, David says, I must go ahead and correct things. I'm We're one nation. We're one soul. We can't say, it's not my business. We have to think of the concerns of the nation, that even if it was the spiritual degradation of Shaul, I have to take achrayut, I have to take responsibility and correct it. And therefore that's what David does. David is a hero. David is courageous. David understands that right now is the time to correct the insult to Shaul. Even though Shaul made a big mistake regarding the Givonim, now is the time to correct it. This is the Gedulah, the greatness of David. He runs to go ahead and do this. And this story is brought here. Why? Even though it happened maybe tens of years ago. Do you follow? So like we said at the beginning of this show, what I heard from this Rav, from Mordechai Franco in the Golan Yeshiva, the same yeshiva we slept at. These last chapters are summary chapters to give us an indication and understanding what is the spiritual barometer during the entire period of David as king. And here we see a great act of responsibility that David knows how to rectify and correct things that he did not do himself. We'll continue with this shiur tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem.